Donald Trump, the brash billionaire, has ascended to the highest office in the land for the second time. However, with evidence of America's power declining, can the 47th president turn the tides and be considered the greatest of all time?
You've said, though, that if you did run for president, you believe you'd win.
Well, I don't know. I think I'd win. I tell you what, I wouldn't go in to lose. I've never gone in to lose in my life.
Donald Trump will be the 47th president of the United States.
Somebody has to help this country, and if they don't, the country and the world are in big trouble.
Join us to examine this and the anomaly that is Donald Trump further on episode 3 of G.O.A.T. Decoded. Welcome to G.O.A.T. Decoded. G.O.A.T. Decoded is a content series dedicated to exploring the science of greatness through the lens of some of the most iconic figures across various disciplines. Please like, share, and subscribe here to join us on a journey to discover the greatness within. Now, back to the episode.
Make America great again.
This is transformed into more than just a campaign slogan. For some, it is a unifying ideology. To others, it's deemed divisive rhetoric. Has America historically been a great nation? Most would say yes, but has she been good for the American people? Or even the world for that matter? Donald Trump is certainly an inescapable entity that is worthy of study. His unique philosophy begs the question, is goodness a prerequisite for greatness? At its core, greatness is often associated with exceptional achievement, influence, or impact in a particular field or sphere of life. And Trump undeniably checks off those boxes of greatness. But goodness, on the other hand, is tied to moral virtue, ethical behavior, and a commitment to the well-being of others. Now, we created this channel to fully investigate the principles of greatness in order to extract them and cultivate the greatness within. If one were to factor goodness into the equation of greatness, can Donald Trump truly be deemed the GOAT? Let us explore the many traits and characteristics of the 47th president and his beloved country that he desires to make great again. Here at G.O.A.T. Decoded, we have developed the GOAT criteria, a 10-point rating system that we use to evaluate greatness. It is a way for us to truly dissect how the greats score in different categories, or rather, how they vary across a spectrum of traits. The criteria comprises 10 attributes: ability, ambition, intelligence, creativity, resilience, integrity, humility, empathy, longevity, and impact. These 10 attributes will be evaluated on a scale of 1 to 10 to combine for an aggregate score of 100 at the conclusion of each case study. Attribute 1, ability. Ability equals talent, heightened by the circumstances that breed said talent, multiplied by persistence and effort to transform it into an ability. Donald Trump's early days in New York, before becoming a political figure, offer a glimpse into his origin, abilities, traits, and the vision he had for himself. Born in Queens in 1946, Trump was raised in a well-off family, led by his father, Fred Trump, a successful real estate developer in his own right. Fred Trump amassed his wealth through a combination of strategic real estate ventures, leveraging government programs, and controversial financial practices. After Fred Trump's father's death in 1918, his mother, Elizabeth Christ Trump, co-founded E. Trump & Son with him in 1927, providing an early foundation in property management and development. The company primarily concentrated on constructing affordable single-family homes and apartment buildings in Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island during the 1920s through the 1940s. Fred Trump's developments catered to middle-class families, ensuring steady rental income. Savvy businessmen leveraged government programs, most notably FHA loans, during the New Deal era, which offered low-interest, government-backed financing, reducing his personal financial risk. Additionally, funded by programs like the 1949 Housing Act, Fred Trump capitalized on post-war housing shortages by securing lucrative government contracts to build veterans' housing. And the irony doesn't go unnoticed that Donald Trump fittingly ran much of his campaign on reducing government waste, amassing the same type of funding that allowed his father Fred Trump to create a better life for his children. Controversial financial practices certainly followed Fred Trump throughout his career. A 2018 New York Times investigation identifies a decades-long pattern of aggressive tax avoidance and alleged fraud that enabled Fred Trump to transfer vast wealth to his children, particularly Donald Trump, while evading hundreds of millions in taxes. The New York Times based its findings on over 100,000 pages of confidential documents, including tax returns, financial records, and legal filings. Key tactics included undervaluing assets, shell corporations, and all-cash companies, inflating expenses and deductions, and exploiting valuation discounts. The New York Times also estimated that Fred Trump transferred over $1 billion in today's dollars to his children through these methods, with Donald Trump receiving the equivalent of $413 million. The Trumps ultimately denied the accuracy of these findings, but they are difficult to ignore in assessing their rise to astronomical wealth. But it is clear that Donald extracted valuable skills from good old dad, similarly utilizing government programs, tax abatements, and basically other people's money to create personal wealth and high-value assets. Donald Trump has actually been forthcoming about those very practices that he employs in his business operations, to this day, both publicly and often.
Did you use that $916 million loss to avoid paying personal federal income taxes?
Of course I do. Of course I do. And so do all of her donors, or most of her donors. I know many of her donors. Her donors took massive tax write-offs.
So have you not paid personal federal income tax?
A lot of my write-off was depreciation and other things that Hillary, as a senator, allowed. And she'll always allow it because the people that give her all this money, they want it. That's why.
Furthermore, it is this environment that fostered Donald Trump's evolution. From this foundation in which his father provided, he learned exponentially to develop the savvy real estate practices to increase both his personal wealth and amplify his brand exponentially. And it wasn't just coincidental that Donald Trump had been accused and brought to court for the very same practices that his father had been accused of. These formative years laid the groundwork for Donald Trump's abilities in business and real estate to flourish. After being sent to the New York Military Academy for discipline, Trump attended Fordham University and then transferred to the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. His time at Wharton bolstered his confidence, equipping him with valuable connections and increased financial knowledge. It was here at Wharton where Donald Trump first envisioned himself breaking out of the outer boroughs, with his heart and mind set on the more affluent, glamorous, and powerful allure of Manhattan.
Most people understand that in order to make progress, you have to do things which aren't necessarily going to make you the most popular boy on the block. And that's what we did. In that case, we had a decision to make, and we had to make a decision.
By the early 1970s, Donald Trump decided to expand beyond his father's working-class housing developments. His unique desire to be an insider drove him to Manhattan, where he sought to build a reputation as a more high-profile real estate developer. Donald Trump didn't want to just be wealthy. He was already that. He wanted to be affluent. He wanted prestige, the type of prestige that Brooklyn and Queens in the 1970s and 80s could not provide. Breaking into Manhattan's real estate market was challenging, as it required significant financing, political maneuvering, and valuable connections. Trump leveraged his father's reputation, financial backing, and government incentives to penetrate the market. Trump's first big project in Manhattan was the renovation of the Commodore Hotel into the Grand Hyatt. Partnering with Hyatt Hotels, he secured tax abatements from New York City to make the project viable. Trump's ability to negotiate deals and navigate bureaucracies became evident. He was also skilled at self-promotion, ensuring the Grand Hyatt was associated with his personal brand. Even back in the days, Trump demonstrated an acute understanding of the media. He presented himself as a brazen, ambitious developer who would transform Manhattan.
Donald Trump has put his name on a New York City hotel, shopping center, and apartment buildings, as well as a casino in Atlantic City. And now he's going to put his name on a big piece of Eastern Airlines.
Though, he did face his fair share of criticism for overstating his achievements and for aggressive tactics in the negotiations.
I sort of love and hate him at the same time. I mean, I think he has, a monumental ego.
He's arrogant.
I like it.
You do?
Man's got it made. Got everything.
Including alleged threats against contractors and tenants. He worked on projects like Trump Tower, which became a symbol of both his growing ability to close deals and his ever-evolving, flamboyant style. Trump took significant financial risks to position himself as a major player in Manhattan. He understood the power of attaching his name to these properties, establishing a recognizable personal brand. Donald Trump realized that was his most important strategy, even back then, which became critical to his ascendancy. Trump honed in on his ability to manipulate public perception through a combination of grandiose claims and relentless media engagement.
I guess nearly 200 dead,
14,000 who are sick, millions, as you witnessed, who are scared right now. What do you say to Americans who are watching you right now who are scared?
I say that you're a terrible reporter. That's what I say. Go ahead.
You've said repeatedly that you think that some of the equipment that governors are requesting, they don't actually need. You said New York might not need 30,000. You said it on Sean Hannity's Fox News. You said
that
why
don't you people act? Let me ask you.
You said
why don't you act in a little more positive? It's always trying to
my
get
question to you
get you. And you know what? That's why nobody trusts the media anymore.
My question to you is, how is that going to impact?
Excuse me, you didn't hear me. That's why you used to work for the Times and now you work for somebody else. Look, let me tell you something. Be nice. Don't
Mr.
be
President,
threatening.
my question
Don't be threatening. Let's give it a shot.
His aggressive business methods, in combination with his legal disputes, signaled a willingness to push boundaries. This developed in Trump not only a willingness to seek conflict in business, but a propensity to thrive at all costs. Mr. Trump was the embodiment of a conflict entrepreneur, outmaneuvering his opposition through competitive business tactics that push limits daily.
Let's talk about what we talked about yesterday. Those in the financial community I'm talking about, and we talked about this on the phone, who have said, and this is them saying it, not me.
This is them? What do you mean by them? This is one or two people, and what about the positive people?
5 or 6, but the ones who said negative things, and
here we are.
Well, we got to talk
back to the negative.
Back to the negative.
Back to the. You know what? Do this interview with somebody else.
Well, we talked about this yesterday on the phone. This is exactly what we talked about.
Do the interview with somebody else. You don't do this. Do it with somebody else. Have a good time.
Because frankly, you're a very negative guy, and I think it's very unfair reporting. Good luck.
I disagree with you. Sorry you feel that way.
It is critically important to understand the intersection of Trump's early days, witnessing his father deploying these aggressive tactics to increase personal wealth, with his own authoritarian approach to exploiting state governments for his benefit. Donald Trump's approach to governance exemplifies a form of authoritarian capitalism, where the state power is leveraged to benefit private interests, the same as it was with his father Fred. The ability to take advantage of state programs to enrich personal interests. The only difference with Donald Trump today is he's now on the inside and no longer assuming the role of an outsider looking in. This model is characterized by a close alliance between government and select industries, leading to policies that favor deregulation, tax cuts for corporations, and the dismantling of regulatory frameworks. This fusion of state and corporate power has accelerated the decline of traditional American influence on the global stage. By prioritizing unilateral actions and transactional relationships over multilateral cooperation, the Trump administration has undermined long-standing alliances and international norms. This is in fact the opposite of making America great again. It is accelerating the decline of American global dominance. Well, we know Mr. Trump is extremely proficient in overstating the value of his assets. So we beg the question, does President Trump inflate the hope of Make America Great Again to his base for personal gain, for him and his family, some say, like father, like son? With full consideration of the formula, Donald Trump, for ability, receives a 6. Now, we gave Mr. Trump a 6 in ability due to the fact that the foundation of his wealth was inherited, not earned. His grandmother, his father, and the formation of E. Trump and Son were the initial pioneers and visionaries for that family. Trump was indoctrinated into a strategic way of doing business since the early 1900s and is simply following the same blueprint. His ability is nevertheless impressive as he's risen to President of the United States, but he is far more a benefactor than a pioneer. Attribute 2, ambition. Ambition requires a sum of vision and focus, compounded with a sum of sacrifice and tenacity. That authoritarian disposition of Mr. Trump is playing out in real time for the world to watch. His ambition after the victory of 2024 is unbridled and without limits. Donald J. Trump ran for president on the claim that he was uniquely qualified to solve America's problems because of this professed business acumen, outsider status, and mastery of the art of the deal.
This summer, I did the Minority Executive Training Program at Yale. You guys, I'm like really smart now.
I'm smart, you're dumb. I can handle things, I'm smart. Not like everybody says. I am too smart. I am too smart. S-M-R-T. I mean S-M-A-R-T.
Yeah, and by the way, Homa is now 20 points up in the polls.
in this profession contains a self-diagnosis of America's problems. America is suffering because politicians who lack Trump's business experience have been making bad deals on trade, foreign relations, and immigration.
Trump's entire candidacy is based on a lie.
I'm really a good businessman. I'm so good at business. Oh.
Not true. Trump is a business failure. Almost every business he's touched, he's driven into the ground.
Unlike most successful CEOs of publicly traded companies, Trump has rarely needed to distinguish his personal interests from his executive role. Free from SEC regulation, he has been able to operate with minimal transparency. He has therefore been able to make nimble executive decisions, unencumbered by bureaucratic hurdles or a need to justify his decision to shareholders.
When it comes to great stakes, I've just raised the stakes. Trump steaks are the world's greatest steaks, and I mean that in every sense of the word. Trump steaks are by far the best tasting, most flavorful beef you've ever had. Truly in a league of their own. And believe me, I understand steaks. It's my favorite food, and these are the best.
Trump is uniquely placed in history. He is undoubtedly a perfect storm, full of self-exaltation, now backed with enormous power and tenacity.
We're not talking about dictatorships. Authoritarianism is a term political scientists use for a worldview that values order and authority and distrusts outsiders and social change. And when authoritarians feel threatened, they look for strongman leaders.
This unprecedented rise to power in combination with his insatiable desire for adulation intrigued us at G.O.A.T to study these unique traits. In Christian eschatology, the term Mystery Babylon, Revelation 17:18 symbolizes a system of worldly power and pride. Pharaoh in the Bible, particularly in the Exodus narrative, often represent authoritarian rulers who are also defiant and full of self-exaltation. And while these scriptures do not explicitly name modern nations, some argue that America's global influence, cultural exports, and moral dynamics mirror characteristics of Mystery Babylon in biblical scriptures. Trump is often characterized by a strong sense of self-confidence. His focus on personal success can evoke comparison to those rulers who exalt themselves above others. He is resistant to criticism, legal accountability, or admitting fault, often doubling down on his positions even when faced with substantial opposition. In summary, President Trump's embodiment of authoritarian capitalism, characterized by the intertwining of state and corporate interests, have contributed to the erosion of democratic principles domestically and the overall decline of American influence internationally. Both Pharaoh and the Mystery Babylon are biblical archetypes of power, pride, and resistance against moral law. Many of Trump's characteristics of self-exaltation, wealth, divisiveness, and control align with these archetypes, making him a figure of interest in many theological discussions. In mathematics, congruent figures have corresponding sides and angles that are equal. If right side triangle A is equal to right side triangle B, then the two sides are congruent. Trump's characteristics and traits are equivalent to that of biblical characteristics of Pharaoh. The parallels join the prophetic attributes in the present attributes, which gives us insight into the consequences of greatness, whether that greatness is moral or immoral. As fellow students of greatness, we want you to understand that the greatness is a double-sided coin, with the potential of one side being good and the other wicked. With full consideration of the formula, President Trump scores a 10 for ambition. Attribute 3, intelligence. The intelligence formula is a sum of the ability to think, to learn experientially, to solve problems, and to adapt to new circumstances. Generally speaking, evaluations of intelligence can be quite subjective, and just about everything pertaining to Donald Trump is undeniably polarizing. But as students of greatness, we strive to remain objective in our analysis, with the ultimate goal of gaining tangible insight. Trump certainly walks a tightrope between both demonstrating intelligence and presenting himself as anti-intellectual at the same time.
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way, and I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards.
I mean, the guy is truly one of a kind. But one can argue that his strategic marketing prowess, media savvy, and successful political branding substantiates claims of intelligence. We have already acknowledged the man's knack for understanding the power of branding. Even prior to his foray into politics, Trump recognized that his namesake was a way to distinguish himself amongst the elites. He legitimately slapped his name on just about everything that could be associated with both opulence and affluence. You had the Trump Towers in New York, the Trump Taj Mahal in Atlantic City, amongst various other luxury apartments, casinos, hotels, and resorts spread out across the globe. As a result, the Trump name became synonymous with both status and wealth, ultimately reinforcing his image as a successful businessman. This even helped counteract the financial struggles he faced in the early 90s.
The headline was quite accurate. Welcome to the 90s, Donald. Because it was like he got whacked right in the face. It was amazing.
Though there were times he may have suffered a momentary setback, his brand narrative as a tenacious tycoon was overpowering to the extent that the perception became that he was indestructible. This exemplifies the aspect of the intelligence formula that mentions learning experientially and solving problems. Now, fast forward 20 years later, in both of his successful presidential campaigns, Trump undoubtedly demonstrated the ability to think and to adapt to new circumstances. Knowing that traditional media would not embrace the brash, unapologetic persona that he developed over the years, he discovered alternative ways to bypass these powerful entities and remain successful in dominating news cycles. During the height of the 2016 campaign, he was a Twitter dude. Like, we would all wake up to strategically timed but zany tweets that would set the agenda for that particular news day. This man understood the assignment and quickly ascertained that this was a means of remaining a perpetual topic of discussion, not merely politically, but both socially and culturally. Trump astutely discerned the limitations of the traditional media landscape, recognizing the gravity of social media, and played the engagement game to his advantage, which does require some degree of intelligence. In 2024, it was more of the same, but instead of Twitter being the primary driver, the Trump campaign sought to leverage the creator economy. They strategically targeted long-form content creators like Joe Rogan, Logan Paul, Theo Von, the Nelk Boys, and Aiden Ross. Individuals that have well-established loyal audiences that take time out their day to watch multiple hour-long podcasts and live streams. And the Donald didn't just do their shows, he collaborated with them, visiting their home recording studios and even invited some to his rallies. Consequently, he was able to create his own parasocial relationships with the devoted fans of these impactful creators. But with that being said, all of this does raise the question, is it Trump or is it his team that is behind this veil of supposed intellect? He tends to demonstrate reliance on his advisors, take Steve Bannon for example, among others, to unpack the intricacies of his policies and strategies.
I said, all we have to do is flood the zone. Every day we hit them with 3 things. They'll bite on one and we'll get all of our stuff done. Bang, bang, bang. These guys will never be able to recover.
I mean, let's consider his verbal communication style for a second. The repeated hyperbolic use of vague terms like huge, the best, the greatest, without providing much evidence of such.
And I like China, and I like President Xi a lot. I think he's a friend of mine. He may not be a friend of mine anymore, but I think he probably respects. From what I hear, if you look at Mr. Pillsbury, the leading authority on China, he was on a good show, I won't mention the name of the show, recently, and he was saying that China has total respect for Donald Trump and for Donald Trump's very, very large brain.
As previously mentioned, he can also even be dismissive at times of experts in science, economics, and diplomacy, which some may deem, again, as anti-intellectual. And last but not least, his handling of the crisis that was COVID-19 was largely criticized as ineffective due to the downplaying of the virus and promotion of truly outlandish, unproven treatments in response to it.
Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning, because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me.
In conclusion, when analyzing a figure as divisive as the Donald, it's difficult to ignore both arguments supporting and denying claims of his intelligence. So, considering both sides of the coin, I think it's fair to rate his intelligence a 7. Attribute 4, creativity. Heralded mathematician Ruth Noller indicated that creativity is generated by the interaction between knowledge, imagination, and evaluation. We've already briefly discussed Trump's penchant for branding and his unconventional media tactics, which can be easily associated with both intelligence and creativity. But the true marker of Trump's creativity lies in his innovation in leveraging celebrity culture to his advantage. Utilizing his imagination, he created a larger-than-life public persona to enhance the visibility of his business ventures. Intentionally rubbing shoulders and co-mingling with the A-list in the world of business, entertainment, politics, and beyond, Trump became so enamored with the attention the world of entertainment brought, both his personal brand as well as his assets, that an epiphany struck him to merge the two together. I mean, who could honestly forget the cultural phenomenon that was, you're fired.
For that. So if you want to fire me, go right ahead.
All right, Gene,
but I think
you're fired.
The Apprentice undeniably made for great television and transformed Donald Trump into a reality TV star during the height of his stranglehold on pop culture. The show's concept was certainly groundbreaking for its time, a competition where the prize was a coveted job within the Trump organization. It creatively merged the worlds of corporate strategy and dramatic storytelling, captivating audiences with its mix of high-stakes business challenges and interpersonal drama, setting a new standard for reality television. But the slogan reverberated socially years after the program ceased, becoming somewhat analogous with Donald Trump.
And yes, together, we will make America great again.
During every single day of the Trump administration, I will very simply put America first.
Now, it's pretty apparent that the guy has an affinity for creating slogans, some humorous, others at the expense of his adversaries. Trump's campaign slogans like "Make America Great Again" and "America First" were unquestionably products of creative messaging. Though they differed from "You're fired" in sheer gravity, these phrases were not merely catchy taglines. They resonated deeply with a significant portion of the electorate, tapping into a complex array of emotions and beliefs of a susceptible audience. This, of course, included an obsession with nostalgia for perceived past greatness, anxieties about social change, and an impassioned sense of national pride. Trump's ability to distill complex issues and anxieties into simple, memorable messages epitomizes creativity. Unfortunately, his opposition also faced the wrath of this creative tactic. Now, I'm sure Crooked Hillary, Sleepy Joe, ring a bell. One reinforced the narrative that Clinton represented the political establishment. It was part of a rigged system. The other undermined Biden's credibility, portraying him as an ineffective leader. And yeah, both were inexplicably disrespectful and borderline bullying.
Go ahead. Sure. She's shocked that I picked her.
No.
She's like in a state of shock.
I'm not thinking, Mr.
That's
President.
okay. I know you're not thinking. You never do.
I'm sorry?
But unfortunately, effective nonetheless. Some may argue that tearing down others shouldn't be celebrated, and they're right. But in the realm of politics, no candidate seems to be entirely above mudslinging. Trump understood this and capitalized on his experience in entertainment. While his methods have often been contentious, Trump's legacy as a creative disruptor has been firmly established. His knowledge of the world of entertainment has interacted with his imagination. So with full consideration of the formula, for creativity, he earns a 9. Attribute 5, resilience. Resilience equals determination, magnified by toughness, divided by the pain an individual is willing to endure.
Never, ever give up. There'll be times in your life you'll want to quit, you'll want to go home. So many people that have really hit big have gone against the tide. But you have to have great confidence in yourself. You have to be the right person. There are very few people that can pull it off, but when you pull it off, it's great.
Donald Trump's unexpected rise from real estate mogul and reality TV star to the 45th and 47th President of the United States is a testament to a unique form of political resilience. His ability to weather personal, professional, and political storms, transforming setbacks into comebacks, reveals a blend of strategic branding, media mastery, and unshakable connection with his base. Trump's resilience, rooted in adaptability, narrative control, and populist appeal, propelled him to the highest office in the nation. Before entering politics, Trump cultivated an image as a deal-making billionaire. His business career, though marked by bankruptcies, became a platform for reinvention. He framed failures as proof of his willingness to think big, leveraging books like The Art of the Deal to mythologize his business acumen. This unique branding as a maverick outsider laid the groundwork for his political narrative, positioning him as a disruptor capable of fixing a broken Washington.
I'm having dinner with everybody. People like me now.
Again, Trump's 2016 campaign redefined political communication, eschewing traditional media gatekeepers, using Twitter to broadcast unfiltered messages, frame controversies, and attack opponents. His knack for provocative sound bites, build the wall, drain the swamp, ensured relentless media coverage, even coverage that was critical of him. When the Access Hollywood tape threatened to derail his campaign,
When you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. Whatever you want. Grab them by the pussy. You can do anything.
he swiftly shifted focus to Hillary Clinton's emails and Biden's family scandals, illustrating his ability to deflect and reframe crises. By treating all attention, positive or negative, as fuel, Trump dominated headlines and marginalized rivals.
If I win, I am going to instruct my Attorney General to get a special prosecutor to look into your situation, because there has never been so many lies, so much deception. There has never been anything like it.
Trump's resilience stemmed from his acute understanding of a disillusioned electorate. He channeled economic anxiety, cultural grievances, and a distrust of institutions into a potent populist message. Promises to revive manufacturing, renegotiate trade deals, and restrict immigration resonated with working-class voters in Rust Belt states. His anti-establishment rhetoric framed elites, media, and political opponents as enemies of the people, fostering a loyal base that viewed his brashness as authentic. This bond insulated him from scandals, supporters often interpreting attacks on Trump as attacks on themselves. Trump's career is a case study in converting vulnerability into strength. Legal battles, sexual misconduct allegations, and corporate collapses were dismissed as witch hunts or spun into evidence of a rigged system. As president, he survived 2 impeachments, first for withholding aid to Ukraine, second for inciting the January 6th insurrection by framing them as partisan assaults. His refusal to concede the 2020 election and continued promotion of the big lie galvanized his base, ensuring his dominance in the GOP despite losing office. Even facing 2023 indictments over classified documents and election interference, he fundraised record sums, portraying himself as a martyr battling a weaponized justice system. Trump's resilience thrived in a climate of deepening polarization and eroding trust in institutions. The 2008 financial crisis, globalization's dislocations, a media landscape prioritizing conflict over nuance created fertile ground for his message. His dismissal of facts as fake news tapped into a broader skepticism of expertise, while his attacks on political correctness mirrored a cultural backlash among conservatives. In this environment, Trump's flaws actually became virtues, to his supporters craving a leader who fights. Donald Trump's ascent to the presidency was not despite his controversies, but because of them. His resilience lies in an unparalleled ability to reframe failures as persecution, wield media as a weapon, and amplify the frustrations of millions into a political movement. Whether viewed as a cautionary tale or a blueprint for success, Trump's career underscores how resilience in modern politics is less about moral authority than it is about narrative control, emotional connection, and the relentless amplification of one's own story. His legacy, fraught and polarizing, redefines what it means to endure in the American political arena. So with full consideration of the resilience formula, the Donald scores a 10. Attribute 6, integrity. Integrity equals the sum of honesty and kind intention, multiplied by a combination of responsibility and courage. Integrity, often defined by adherence to moral principles, honesty, and consistency, has been a central point of debate in Donald Trump's career. Critics argue that his actions, rhetoric, and decision-making reflect a pattern of dishonesty, self-interest, and ethical flexibility, though supporters often frame his behavior as either pragmatic or anti-establishment.
I can tell you this, these were bad people. That was a bad group of, as I say, hombres.
Donald Trump's business practices and financial dealings have been marred by both fraud allegations and legal settlements. In 2016, Donald Trump agreed to a $25 million settlement to resolve 3 lawsuits against Trump University, his now defunct real estate training program.
At Trump University, we teach success. That's what it's all about, success. It's going to happen to you. These are all people that are hand-picked by me. Terrific people, terrific brains, successful. We are going to have the best of the best. We're going to teach you what you need to know.
The lawsuits, filed in New York and California, accused the unaccredited institution of deceptive marketing practices, including falsely advertising Trump's direct involvement, which promised expert mentorship and wealth-building strategies that plaintiffs claim were never delivered. Over 6,000 former students, many of whom paid up to $35,000 for courses, received reimbursements as part of the settlement. While Trump denied wrongdoing and framed the resolution as a business decision to avoid prolonged litigation, the case became a focal point during his 2016 presidential campaign, with critics citing it as evidence of unethical business conduct. The settlement was finalized in 2017, but in addition, Jared Kushner's private equity firm, Affinity Partners, secured a $2 billion investment from Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, chaired by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in 2021.
That's Jared Kushner, the husband of Trump's daughter, Ivanka.
The deal occurred shortly after Kushner left his role as a senior advisor in the Trump administration, raising questions about the connection between his governmental role and subsequent financial gains. As a key architect of U.S.-Saudi relations, Kushner facilitated significant policies, including a $110 billion arms deal, support from Saudi-led interventions in Yemen, and a blockade of Qatar. But let us circle back to MBS. Despite the CIA's conclusion that MBS ordered the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, the Trump administration avoided direct sanctions against MBS, maintaining close diplomatic ties.
It all started with a threat. And then, the threat became a reality. According to a new book based on Turkish intelligence, a team of 15 arrives from Riyadh and gathers for one last revision of the plan. The location, the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. The discussion, the murder of prominent Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi.
The Trump administration's pro-Saudi stance, including unwavering support for MBS, created a favorable environment for post-administration deals. Trump's policies likely bolstered Saudi's confidence in engaging with Kushner.
For my critics, what I say is point to a single decision we made that wasn't in the interests of America.
Okay, I'll point to one. How about letting an ally kill a Washington Post columnist, Jared?
What was really troubling about the assassination of Jamal Khashoggi, there was every indication that it was carried out by the Saudis. Basically, Kushner and President Trump gave MBS a pass by virtue of not, calling them out.
Why are you fighting with the Saudis over your own intelligence? Because it's America first for me.
Trump's history of blending business and politics set a precedent where associates could leverage political connections for financial gain, though no direct evidence links Trump to this specific deal. However, we certainly know how fiercely loyal Trump is to his inner circle and how adamantly he demands loyalty from those around him.
This so-called Davos of the desert. The forum that was designed to attract international investment.
The new Europe is the Middle East. The Public Investment Fund reaching $2 trillion or more by 2030.
Kushner's transition from shaping Saudi policy to securing Saudi investments highlights a revolving door of concerns. Now, critics argue that the deal rewards past political favors, though Kushner denies any wrongdoing, asserting that the investment was entirely merit-based. While Kushner was a private citizen during the deal, ethical questions persisted about whether his White House role influenced Saudi's decisions. The lack of transparency in the deal's terms continued to exacerbate suspicions.
In April 2023, Sanibel, the venture capital arm of the Saudi Public Investment Fund, did something surprising. It published a list of dozens of American venture capital and private equity firms it had partnered with, showing just how widely the kingdom's money was being spread around.
The deal underscores the personalization of diplomacy under Trump, where private relationships often bypass traditional channels. This blurring of lines risks conflating national interests with personal financial gain. The arrangement fuels skepticism about whether U.S. foreign policy under Trump prioritized personal enrichment over democratic accountability, particularly given Saudi Arabia's strategic investments in Kushner's firm post-administration. Affinity Partner frames the investment as part of PIF's global diversification strategy, citing similar investments in firms like Uber and Lucid Motors. The PIF claims the deal aligns with Vision 2030's economic goals, though MBS's override of an ethic panel's objections to the investment does raise red flags.
Some next-level sleaze and grift going on right in front of our eyes.
This is just putting a price tag on American foreign policy.
I've been in this business 40 years. This is extraordinary, unprecedented. I've never seen anything like it.
The reason it was so egregious, he had no experience in that field.
Now, though Trump has not publicly intervened in the deal, he has historically defended his administration's Saudi policies as beneficial to U.S. interests. This deal underscores ethical challenges in U.S. governance, where personal relationships and opaque financial dealings can overshadow institutional accountability. This case exemplifies the enduring impact of the Trump administration's transactional approach to foreign policy, with implications on both public trust and diplomatic integrity.
We've become very good friends over a fairly short period of time. I was in Saudi Arabia in May, and we are bringing back hundreds of billions of dollars into the United States, and we understand that, and they understand that. Some of the things that have been approved and are currently under construction and will be delivered to Saudi Arabia very soon, and that's for their protection. But if you look in terms of dollars, $3 billion, $533 million, $525 million, that's peanuts for you.
Moving on to Donald Trump's business career, which has been marked by significant controversies, notably regarding contractor non-payment and strategic bankruptcies. Multiple lawsuits have accused Trump and his organizations of failing to pay contractors and small businesses for services rendered. Critics argued that this practice exploited small businesses, leaving them with losses while Trump's projects proceeded. Additionally, Trump's companies filed for 6 corporate bankruptcies between 1991 and 2009, including high-profile cases like the Trump Taj Mahal Casino in Atlantic City. These Chapter 11 filings allowed Trump to restructure debts and continue operations, but creditors, often investors, contractors, and employees, absorbed the losses.
We begin by looking at a lengthy article this past weekend in the New York Times detailing how Donald Trump bankrupted his Atlantic City casinos but still earned millions. Reporters Ross Butner and Charles Bagley write, even as his companies did poorly, Mr. Trump did well. He put up little of his own money, shifted personal debts to the casinos, and collected millions of dollars in salary, bonuses, and other payments. The burden of his failures fell on investors and others who would bet on his business acumen. Their new article is headlined, How Donald Trump Bankrupted His Atlantic City Casinos But Still Earned Millions.
Donald Trump's first presidency was marked by a pervasive pattern of misleading claims and falsehoods, eroding public trust in institutions. The Washington Post meticulously tracked over 30,000 false or misleading statements during his presidency, spanning baseless allegations of voter fraud, dangerous COVID-19 misinformation touting unproven treatments, and inflated boasts about inaugural crowd sizes.
This plan, it'll simplify the tax code. It'll grow the American economy at a level that it hasn't seen for decades.
This barrage of misinformation culminated in his 2020 election denial where he relentlessly promoted the big lie that the election was stolen through fraud, despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary.
This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election.
His refusal to concede directly fueled the January 6, 2021 Capitol insurrection, as supporters believing his false claims violently attempted to overturn the results. These actions not only destabilized democratic norms, but also highlighted the consequences of weaponizing misinformation to undermine faith in governance and electoral integrity. Donald Trump's moral character has also been widely scrutinized, marked by personal scandals and divisive rhetoric. Allegations of extramarital affairs, including payments to adult film actress Stormy Daniels, crude remarks like the infamous "grab them by the pussy," and derogatory comments about immigrants have certainly fueled perceptions of ethical laxity. Trump's career seemingly reflects a paradox of integrity. To supporters, he embodies a fighter, unbound by political correctness. To critics, he epitomizes self-interest and ethical decay. His actions, fraudulent business practices, election denial, and norm-breaking governance suggest a prioritization of personal gain and power over transparency and accountability. While subjective interpretations of integrity vary, the sheer abundance of legal, financial, and ethical controversies paints a pattern of conduct that challenges traditional notions of public trust. Trump's legacy emphasizes the tension between populist disruption and the moral expectations of leadership. So for integrity, Donald Trump earns a 0. Attribute 7, humility. Humility is the sum of 4 parts: accurate self-awareness, appreciation of others, openness to feedback, and transcendence in perspective. Unbiased take here, the terms Trump and humility paired together is practically oxymoronic. The first part of the formula acknowledges accurate self-awareness as an integral part of humility. Granted, the man has achieved a great deal, but he rarely gives anyone else a chance to tell it. Trump is known to highlight both his wealth and intelligence in hyper-exaggerated terms. He's even donned himself a stable genius and claimed to have known more about various topics than experts in science, economics, and diplomacy.
Nobody knows this stuff better than me.
Nobody knows more about taxes than I do, and income than I do.
Nobody knows more about construction than I do.
Nobody knows more about campaign finance than I do.
Nobody knows consultants better than me.
I know more about drones than anybody. Nobody knows much more about technology, this type of technology, certainly, than I do.
Nobody knows more about technology than me.
I know more about technology than anybody. Nobody in the history of this country has ever known so much about infrastructure as Donald Trump. I know the H-1B. I know the H-2B. Nobody knows it better than me. I know more about ISIS than the generals do, believe me.
This tendency to amplify himself without any evidence substantiating his claims might very well be the antithesis of humility. The second aspect of the formula is appreciation of others. And Donald undoubtedly displays his appreciation for those who are aligned with him in some capacity. Though one might argue that true humility is demonstrative when appreciation can be shown to even those one may be disagreeable with. And Trump has a difficult time mustering up anything nice to say about people that may disagree with him. One can harken back to his attempt to mar Barack Obama's political credibility by constantly questioning the status of his U.S. citizenship.
The birth certificate was produced in 2011. You continued to tell the story and question the president's legitimacy in 2012, 13, 14, 15, as recently as January. So the question is, what changed your mind?
Well, nobody was pressing it. Nobody was caring much about it. I figured you'd ask the question tonight, of course, but nobody was caring much about it. But I was the one that got him to produce the birth certificate, and I think I did a good job.
And even after the documents had been produced, vindicating the former president, an apology wasn't issued. Instead, Donald patted himself on the back for doing the American people a great service in response. You see, an apologetic gesture could be easily associated with an admittance of defeat, which doesn't seem to be a component of Trump's psychology. We also briefly discussed his penchant for creative nicknames, for Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton specifically. But how about Little Marco for his political rival turned unlikely ally, Marco Rubio? Crazy Bernie was another one.
That Hillary, as I say, crooked Hillary, she's as crooked as they come. She had a little bad news today, as you know, from some reports came down weren't so good, but not so good. The Inspector General's report, not good. But I want to run against Hillary, I just want to run against her. Look, I don't know if you're going to be able to. It could be we're going to run against Crazy Bernie. That could be.
Undermining the senator's policy and asserting his ideas were extreme back in 2016. And there was Pocahontas, mocking Elizabeth Warren's claims of Native American ancestry. The constant attacking and belittling surely doesn't lend support to affirming notions of humility. How about his openness to feedback? Let's keep it real. Trump is more commonly known for refusing to admit errors or accept criticism. For example, he has consistently dismissed negative coverage as fake news and rejected findings from investigations that were unfavorable to him. This reluctance to acknowledge faults or limitations is often cited as evidence of a lack of humility. Additionally, Trump has repeatedly rejected the findings of investigations that have yielded results that are critical of his actions or decisions, further demonstrating his reluctance to acknowledge any wrongdoing or shortcomings. His refusal to admit errors or accept criticism can also be seen as a barrier to personal and professional growth. By refusing to acknowledge his own shortcomings, he misses out on opportunities to learn from his mistakes. This resistance to feedback and self-reflection even makes it difficult for him to build any genuine, non-transactional relationships. As a result of this, transcendence and perspective is borderline improbable. So with that being said, similarly to integrity, Donald Trump nets a score of 0 for humility. Attribute 8, empathy. Empathy can be broken down into 3 components: emotional, cognitive, and compassionate empathy. Now, there are anecdotes of Trump performing acts of kindness, such as helping individuals in financial distress or offering support to grieving families. For example, he paid for the funeral of a child who died in a tragic accident and helped a struggling businessman with medical bills. But these inclinations of empathy don't seem to translate to his public persona. Why is that? If his compassion were authentic, would it not translate to being visible to the public eye? It's difficult to corroborate this notion of empathy with his history of insensitive commentary towards marginalized groups, which had been reoccurring for much of his career. A prime example of this takes us back to 1989, when 5 black and brown teenagers, Antron McCray, Kevin Richardson, Yusuf Salaam, Raymond Santana, and Corey Wise, were accused of the brutal assault and rape of a white female jogger in Central Park, New York City. Years later, it was determined that the Central Park 5 were actually wrongfully convicted, validating the truth of systemic racism in a flawed criminal justice system. But before the young men could even be tried or convicted, Donald Trump took out full-page ads in 4 New York City newspapers, including the New York Times, with the headline, "Bring back the death penalty. Bring back our police." Furthermore, the ads called for the execution of the Central Park 5, with Trump writing, "I want to hate these murderers, and I always will. I'm not looking to psychoanalyze or understand them. I am looking to punish them."
Do I have hatred for them? And I said, look, this woman was raped, mugged, and thrown off a building. Thrown off a building, on top of everything else. She's virtually, she's got some major problems, to put it mildly. I said, of course I hate these people. And let's all hate these people, because maybe hate is what we need if we're going to get something done.
It's difficult to ignore the racial undertones that emboldened Trump to interject himself into this matter, where the lives of young men of color hung in the balance. Even in light of the Central Park 5's exoneration in 2002, the man showed little remorse or empathy for their wrongful conviction. In contrast, he actually doubled down on his original assertion, suggesting that the young men didn't have the past of angels.
You have people on both sides of that. They admitted their guilt. If you look at Linda Fairstein and if you look at some of the prosecutors, they think that the city should never have settled that case. So we'll leave it at that.
This lack of compassion woefully didn't stop there. Fast forward to present day, accusations of xenophobia still pervade the president's personal brand and transcend to his policies. During a bipartisan meeting back in 2019 on immigration policy, Reports suggest Trump questioned why the U.S. would accept immigrants from countries like Haiti, El Salvador, and many other African nations, referring to them as shithole countries. And let's say the credibility of these particular reports are questionable. Similar sentiments were echoed during the presidential debate back in September of just last year. There, President Trump magnified false rumors about Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, claiming that they were stealing and eating the pets in the community of the people that lived there.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
Immigrants of color worked incredibly hard to assimilate and establish themselves within the cultural fabric of America. A dream of opportunity has been sold to them for many years, but there seems to be little empathy for their struggles, just targeted ire. And this ire, of course, extends to the US-Mexico border as well, where Trump has created significant threats and hardships for the children of undocumented immigrants, even those who are American citizens, which is essentially threatening to eliminate birthright citizenship. Could it be that difficult to empathize with the thought of destroying the familial structure of actual Americans, to feel what others might be feeling? The constant lack of diplomacy, the callous verbiage utilized, and the overall disregard of how the people that make up these marginalized communities feel in response to Trump makes it difficult to view him as an empathetic individual. The most recent example of this is connected to the catastrophic war in Gaza. His allyship with Benjamin Netanyahu, though controversial enough, is at least to be expected. The US government has historically backed Israel's military financing, but the complete disregard for the suffering of the Palestinian people in Gaza was made apparent during a press conference on February 4th.
Go ahead, please.
Just to follow up on what you were saying about the Gazans leaving Gaza, going to other countries. One, where exactly are you suggesting that they should go? And two, are you saying they should return after it's rebuilt? And if not, who do you envision living there?
I envision the world, people living there, the world's people. I think you'll make that into an international, unbelievable place. I think the potential in the Gaza Strip is unbelievable. And I think the entire world, representatives from all over the world will be there, and they'll live there. Palestinians also. Palestinians will live there. Many people will live there. But they've tried the other, and they've tried it for decades and decades and decades. It's not going to work. It didn't work. It will never work. And you have to learn from history. History has, just can't let it keep repeating itself. We have an opportunity to do something that could be phenomenal. And I don't want to be cute. I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East, this could be something that could be so bad. This could be so magnificent.
According to the Palestinian Health Ministry, since the attacks commenced, the death toll of Palestinians has grown to an estimated 61,709, with 44,840 confirmed, 111,845 injured, and the remaining presumably missing under the rubble. And though the data is staggering, the imagery of a city and people decimated is even more horrific, with 1.9 million of them displaced with an inability to return home. All things considered, proposing transforming their ravaged homes into a tourist destination exhibits a complete lack of cognitive, emotional, and compassionate empathy. In conclusion, empathy is a cornerstone of effective leadership. It is a fundamental aspect of human interaction and growth. And sure, some may be able to recognize President Trump's private acts of kindness, connection with his base, and occasional displays of concern as evidence of empathy. But empathy is essential for fostering compassion, cooperation, and a sense of shared humanity amongst all people. So for empathy, President Trump receives 2. Attribute 9, longevity. The formula for longevity is output multiplied by time. The tale of the Pharaoh of Exodus, a ruler whose defiance and hubris led to his kingdom's ruin, offers a striking allegory for Donald Trump's political trajectory. Both figures embody the dangers of unyielding authority and resistance to change. Trump's longevity is still open to change. However, The pitfalls of his enduring influence and the potential consequences of his actions draw parallels to Pharaoh's downfall that emphasize the perils of unchecked power. Donald Trump, once a cultural icon and now an unchecked president, has reshaped American politics, marked by unprecedented polarization and a cult of personality. His policies, such as tax reforms and deregulation, have energized his base while deepening partisan divides. Trump's America First ethos and rejection of political correctness redefine Republican ideology, prioritizing loyalty over tradition. His legacy includes a transformed judiciary, a fortified border policy, and a GOP tethered to his persona. Yet, this influence comes with costs: eroded trust in institutions, normalized misinformation, and a fractured electorate. In Exodus, the Pharaoh's stubbornness in defying Moses' demands triggers catastrophic plagues, culminating in Egypt's devastation. His refusal to adapt, despite escalating warnings, symbolizes the folly of hubris. Similarly, Trump's relentless denial of electoral defeat and legal realities reflects a dangerous rigidity. The Pharaoh's downfall was not merely personal, but national, echoing how Trump's actions risk broader harm to the American people, undermining faith in elections and inciting political violence.
I believe God spared Donald Trump's life for a purpose. I don't care whether you're a Democrat or Republican. That's not what we're talking about here. I think he has a purpose. My own feeling is God spared him for the purpose of calling our nation back to its Judeo-Christian foundation.
Both figures share a tragic flaw: the belief in invincibility and divinity. Trump's dismissal of fake news and the Pharaoh's dismissal of divine warnings reveal a contempt for external truths. Their strategies stoking fear, demonizing opponents, consolidate power, but sow chaos. For Trump, he is divinely sent, and this manifests in a base that views accountability as persecution.
Prayer works because he was sure, as Donald Trump turned his head just slightly, that the bullet missed him just enough to save his life to be the next president of the United States. We have believed for so long that God will make some changes in this country, and he's about to make a change in the current administration and send them home.
The parallel lies in the escalation of consequences. Political violence and social strife for Trump, plagues and economic collapse for Pharaoh. Supporters argue Trump's resilience revitalized conservatism, challenging a corrupt establishment. His ability to withstand scandals and maintain influence is seen as strategic genius, not hubris. Yet, this defense overlooks the erosion of democratic guardrails and the GOP's dependency on his persona, a fragility masked as strength. The Pharaoh story warns that unchecked power and refusal to adapt invite disaster. Trump's legacy or output, while transformative, carries seeds of turmoil, legal peril, political isolation, and a nation grappling with truth. The challenge for America is to heed history's lessons that resilience, devoid of accountability, risks collective downfall. As with Exodus, the path forward requires confronting hard truths, lest the echoes of Pharaoh's folly become our own. For longevity, the Donald receives a 7. Attribute 10, impact. The impact formula consists of 3 components: power, relatability, and quantity of individuals one is able to affect. Right, wrong, or indifferent, President Trump has been indisputably impactful. Though, the question that exists at the crux of this episode is, at what cost? If one's impact contributes to the moral decline of a nation, should it even be acknowledged? What Trump has been able to achieve, thanks to his borderless business tactics, exhibits power. He rose to be leader of the free world, not once, but twice. He's demonstrated the ability to shape political, social, and cultural narratives in ways that no president has, utilizing his newfound executive authority to influence both domestic and international policy. But a question that will keep arising is, to whose benefit? Domestically, he's implemented new tax cuts, most recently removing overtime hours from being taxed, which sounds promising in the short term, right? Putting more money in the pockets of the American people. But at the same token, Trump's administration aims to extend the 2017 tax cuts that directly benefit large corporations. In an ideal world, the cuts are supposed to incentivize trickle-down economics, where the corporations utilize the savings from the cuts to create more job opportunities, resulting in economic stimulation. But that isn't what happened in 2017. Even former White House strategist Steve Bannon recognizes this, stating, "I only like corporate tax cuts if it's ironclad, that they're going to take the tax cut, the savings, and plow it back into productive capital." You didn't see that. They took it for themselves. There always seems to be a caveat that further exemplifies the polarizing nature of Trump. What is being sold to the average American citizen as a benefit to them is largely intended to distract them from the decline of American power. America's current state is unsustainable, and substantial adjustments are required to address its underlying issues. Internationally, the president has engaged with world leaders, aligning himself with the likes of Netanyahu, Vladimir Putin, and simultaneously maligning the Justin Trudeau's and Claudia Pardos of the world. He's ruffled the feathers of the latter two by threatening to impose tariff hikes on the likes of Mexico, Canada, and China, but later rescinded in fear of a looming trade war. This type of behavior makes it difficult to discern what the president's true intentions actually are. Is it done to serve as another distraction? Another example of flooding the zone? Is he peddling the farce of American nationalism to benefit his own interests? So powerful, yes. But where is the man in power leading this great nation? As far as relatability, Trump has always had a keen understanding of how to connect with whatever audience he's targeting. He's been an outsider his entire career as both a businessman and politician. Supporters dig the fact that he's a political disruptor that challenges the old guard, rooted in traditional politics that they have deemed ineffective. Trump is undeniably charismatic, but his relatability is extremely dependent on one's cultural perspective and political ideology. As discussed earlier in the video, those hailing from marginalized communities tend to view his rhetoric and behavior as divisive and elitist. And based on the evidence, how could anyone argue against that? Even though they still do. And this is what makes Mr. Trump such an intriguing case study to explore. The quantity of individuals he's been able to affect is massive, but who has his leadership and business savvy benefited all along? There are indications that the US political structure is trending toward an oligarchy. You got Elon as the head of Doge, both Zuckerberg and Bezos kissing the ring, and plenty others cozying up to Mr. President. I mean, Trump's cabinet is composed of over 13 billionaires, but the man ran his campaign on a working class message. Will the wealthiest set of cabinet members truly understand the plight of the average American citizen? Donald Trump is a businessman first. He's a brand guy, a salesman, and what he's selling as America's proverbial return to greatness may very well be its demise. So yes, his impact reverberates nationally and globally beyond question. But where is it leading America and the remainder of the world? With full consideration of the formula, in conjunction with the criticisms of the 47th president, for impact, he earns a 6. Now, once again, time for us to add all of the components of greatness together to ascertain Donald Trump's overall score. President Donald Trump is an overall 57 based on a GOAT Decoded criteria for greatness. As fellow students of greatness, you are all free to disagree, but we at GOAT certainly believe goodness is undoubtedly a prerequisite for greatness. Stay tuned for more episodes of GOAT Decoded to see how Trump's score holds up against other GOATs across a spectrum of different disciplines. Please, again, like, share, and subscribe here to join us in the class of greatness.